Welcome, everyone. We'll get started here just in a few moments. My name is LaShonda Williams, and I'm serving as your moderator today for activating your board for fundraising success. We'll start in about approximately 1 minute.
So excited.
I am too. While we're waiting for others to join us, because we had a really large number of individuals who registered, if you could put your first name and what city you're from in the chat, that would be great.
Muhi, currently, I'm in Denver. Where are you based, LaShonda?
I am in Houston, Texas, where the World Cup is happening right now,
Wow.
literally in real time. I think there's a game going on, or it should be getting ready to wrap up pretty soon.
Very exciting.
It is
Don't
a
want to get
very
stuck in
exciting
that
time.
traffic.
I do not.
And that's why
It has
you're
been very
here.
That is why I'm here in this virtual space with each and every one of you. Looking forward to sharing some wonderful tips to help you amplify your fundraising boards and for success for the second half of this year as we are embracing our summer months. And so, without any further ado, we've got roughly about 35 and counting. Okay, we've got Dallas, Memphis. Oh, I love Memphis. Wonderful place. Salt Lake City, Columbus, Ohio, San Diego, sunny San Diego, where National University is housed, which is wonderful. The weather there should be amazing. Oh, Greenville, yes. DC, hi. Ashland, Ohio. Ronald Reagan Foundation, hi, Kay. All right. Stickle in UT. All right, Salem, North Carolina. Oh gosh, we have representation across United States of America, and we are very happy that you could join us today. And without any further ado, because we want to value your time with us, we will get started. Welcome to National University's Fundraising Academy, activating your board for fundraising success. The next hour is going to be what I refer to as a power hour, where we'll be building fundraising confidence as we explore relationship centric practices that shift fundraising from transactional, and you all know what transactional looks like, into meaningful, mission driven conversations with those that are closest to our organizations. While we're incorporating the cost selling cycle of education, our model will definitely help activate your fundraising and take it to the next level. This session is designed to help all of you with garnering some additional confidence that you may or may not have, as well as connect with donors for purpose, passion, and impact. You'll learn practical tools today through Mr. Muhi himself that will help you with your relationships and clearly communicate with your organization from the standpoint of the value and the approach of your fundraising conversations, which is going to be very important with your fundraising success. So whether you're looking to learn for the very first time, or if you want to sharpen the skills that you have, we have actionable strategies that you'll be able to leave today's session with and implement immediately with your teams. And today I am very honored to introduce our presenter. Our presenter today, we talk about a lot about why and how you entered the fundraising space. And for many of our fundraisers, they discover their path through unexpected and unconventional experiences. However, today's presenter, Mr. Muhi, his journey began with a development summer internship program. And I'm a little jealous because I wonder how much greater I could be if I had that internship experience. And during that time, he learned the importance of poise, passion, and positioning in service for nonprofit organizations. And after receiving his master's degree in public administration, he built a fundraising career that spans annual giving, major gifts, and capital campaigns. So he has touched it all. And his commitment to advancing philanthropy has led him to become a co founder of the American Muslim Community Foundation, where he expands opportunities for charitable giving as well as community impact, which is why we are all here today, and developing additional relationships with fundraisers across the globe, and his commitment to help fundraising leaders and cultivating them to become the best they can be. He joined Fundraising Academy roughly about 5 years ago, and he joins us today with a wealth of experience to share with you some of the best practices that he's implemented and those that are on the horizon. And I am fortunate to be your moderator today with 2 decades of experience. Like Muhi, I span from annual giving through major gifts, and I love some alumni relations. And one of my biggest points that I love to share most with most people is the importance of building relationships. And so, with that being said, we're going to dive right into today's session. Today, we are all here because we have a charge. And our charge in our various roles is to fundraise. And we all got a cause. And today we're going to learn how to fund it. And we want to share with you a variety of resources that the Fundraising Academy has available for you to amplify your fundraising at your organization. So I'll first begin by giving you just a brief overview of the cost selling cycle. The cost selling cycle is broken into 3 phases, which is comparable to the traditional donor cycle. But with the cost selling cycle, it allows some additional steps so that you can be better prepared as a fundraiser and be able to amplify your giving. So phase 1 includes these specific things that are related to research and, my apologies, that are related to research and donor identification. So it's prospecting and looking at those prospective donors that align with your organization that can be contributors that align with your mission and are interested in the impact that you're making in your respective energy and industry. Phase 2 is the cultivation, which is the engagement portion, identifying the best way to approach or to create relationships or navigate the introduction of said relationships with prospects, and identifying through need discovery whether or not the particular prospects that you've identified truly aligned with your organization, and understanding what their desire is to serve and prepare you to put together a presentation in front of them or a proposal in which they will accept. And phase 3 is all about securing the gift and donor retention through stewardship. And that means meaningful, personalized stewardship for your donors, whether it be individual, corporate, and or a foundation. And with that being said, we're going to dive into today's session.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, LaShonda. Always a pleasure working with you. I feel like I need a few more necklaces to represent each year that I've been affiliated with FA. So wonderful to see everybody in the chat. We missed a Nairobi. Somebody's here from Nairobi, so I think they win the cake on
The
furthest
farthest
distance.
distance.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you, William, for joining us. I see a Detroit shout out to my hometown. And yeah, just excited to be on this webinar discussing with each of you different tactics that we can do to engage board members. There's always so much that board members are responsible for, right? They are listed on the 990. They are fiduciarily responsible. They could be sued if you don't have board of directors insurance. So a lot of risk, a lot of responsibility, a big role to fill. I think that all organizations should have job descriptions for their board members so that they know what they're getting into, what their time commitment is, who their point of contact on staff is, what committees they're part of. So all of those things aside, we're going to hone in on the fundraising experience. So if you can join us, we're going to be launching a poll, I believe, that will go over how engaged your fundraising board is on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the most engaged.
Oh, Muhi, we're getting some mixed numbers here. This is great.
Yeah,
When you talk about fundraising boards, what are your thoughts on the level of engagement where we typically would ideally like to be, Muhi?
obviously a 5, but I don't see any
Obviously.
here. I'm looking. But that's okay. That means that there is room for improvement, which is always a good thing. We'll give it just another half a minute. 5 would mean highly engaged, the most that they can do. It's rock star level. Your org doesn't need any improvement. They're a well-oiled machine. That's what a 5 would be.
They facilitate introductions and they also are comfortable with making the ask if need be.
Yeah, or just being involved, right? Maybe they send thank you.
Exactly.
Maybe they um hosted something for you, got a table at your gala.
And definitely they're sharing their network to help grow your organization. So true buy-in.
As they say, your network is your net worth, right? All right. I think we got majority of responses in, so we'll stop and we'll share the results. As you see, we have um 0% at 5, and we have 4% at 3% at number 4. And then we have a little bit more in the middle of the pack. So majority of you are at number 3, which is a good place to be. It's not the best, it's not the worst, but there's something going on. Hopefully, for those in the number 2 and number 1 arena, after this presentation, you have some practical steps to feel more confident about getting to a number 4, maybe even a number 5, let's say by the end of the year. You may need 3 to 6 months to implement some of these things, and we'll see what we can do to help you get there. Now, why is fundraising important? And why can it feel so hard? Today, I have the privilege to spend some time with you all and talk about fundraising. I hope that through this process, you gain some insights, you learn about some tools and resources that you can take back to your organizations and institutions to create more impact. But let's start here. These are two questions that I often hear. And what are your thoughts? Dump into the chat why you think fundraising is so important and why it can feel so hard. We'll stay here for about a minute to see your responses, and based on that, we can formulate a conversation going forward. LaShonda, any thoughts on why fundraising is important?
You chimed in right when I was about to. Fundraising is important because we all are passionate about our various organizations, whether it be human services or providing some form of care for individuals, animals, the environment. So that is why fundraising is important, because although we all would love to say our organizations have sufficient revenue, we'll always need to be fundraising to secure additional funding. And so it really helps the organization create sustainability, and it funds said programs. And it oftentimes can be hard, y'all, because of the economy. I think the economy often impacts some of our donors, but when we have established a very strong base of sustainers, then even through market changes, we can still sustain. So fundraising is always important and always relevant because we want to be able to be of service to mankind and our community.
Absolutely. And what I'm seeing in the chat, money means impact. Marika, thank you. Brian says people feel that fundraising is begging, connects donors' passion to their impact. Stacy, no one likes asking for money, but that makes relationship building way more important than the actual fundraising. So I call myself a relationship gal rather than a fundraiser. That's interesting. I always love hearing people's perspective on it. And for me, I think it comes naturally to ask big, to ask bold. You never are going to get what you want in life if you're not asking for what you need. And this isn't even about money or fundraising. This is just like life advice, right? Um, I think that you have to often be vulnerable and put yourself out there to get closer to what you want. You may not always land there, but you might get a little closer. And the same thing in fundraising and philanthropy, right? You're often needing to be audacious, especially in a campaign, right? You got big goals in a campaign. If it's your annual fund, you still have that gift range chart and you still have that top donor that needs to be there to be an anchor. Um, and once you do the planning, once you do the proper steps before you even make the ask, before you even think about what number you're going to want the donor to give, I feel like if you're connecting the dots, it's just the next step to get to the next step. And it shouldn't feel hard doing that because you have a methodology, you have a framework, you have a toolkit, you have a resource that's guiding you to get there, right?
And that
So,
guide begins with the relationship part.
yeah, for sure. It's getting to know them. It's asking the right discovery questions. It's that prospecting. It's all of those steps that you talked about in the cause selling cycle, that before you get to solicitation, there's, six other steps involved. So, in terms of asking for support, you got to be building that foundation of the relationship, getting to know your donor, asking those open-ended discovery questions, whether it's the first meeting or the 20th meeting with that donor to get there. So we'll dive in a little bit deeper, but I appreciate you all chiming in the chat in terms of why it can feel so hard and why fundraising is important. So, in regard to the next slide, we're going to be looking at some data, and data often tells a story. So, with that story is how much Americans give annually. And many of you might be familiar with the Giving USA data. And this data is from 2025. So I believe next week, Giving USA releases their report for 2026, which will show the 2025 contributions. Um, Show of hands, how many you think it's going to exceed 600 billion? Yeah, that's very exciting because, I'm hoping it does, right? And it tells that trajectory of American generosity. Now, with this data, um, 74%, right? If you add the bequests, if you add the individuals, that's individual giving. Now, foundations, some of those could be family foundations, other could be private. Um, and always at corporations, there's going to be individuals that are making the decisions. But in philanthropy altogether, it's almost $600 billion dollars in 2024 that was donated to charity. And since 2020, there's been a 60% year over year increase in just 4 years in individual giving. Now, we could dive deeper into what comes from family foundations versus donor advised funds versus regular gifts, but that's what the report is for. You can go take a look at the Giving USA website, see all the different summaries they have, how they break it down. And I'm sure when it's released next week, you can probably find dozens of webinars that are going to dive into the data and tell a story around philanthropy and individuals. So you need to also look at your annual revenue as an institution. Does it look similar to this as a national standard, or does your data tell a story that you're leaning too heavily on foundations? Maybe your foundation giving is 60% and your individual giving is 30%. And your corporate giving is the remaining 10, right? So if you look at how your data from the last 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, however far back you can go with your institution, break it down into these categories and see how your institution compares to the national average. Now, Fundraising Academy focuses specifically on building skills around individual giving. And this is why, because a majority of giving comes from individuals. So now, if you look at the next slide, you will see that it breaks it down also by the type of institutions that receive the um, gifts as well. So, in terms of, there we go, you know, what types of institutions you all represent, maybe drop into the chat according to this list where your institution lies. Are you a human services organization, a religion or based organization, public secure society benefit, international affairs, arts and culture? And then you get to see, do Americans give more to your institution versus other institutions? So I see a few that are for arts and culture, a few that are for human services, a few that are for international affairs. And your organization very well can likely fall into multiple. Maybe you are an after school program, so it is education, but you focus on arts and culture there, or any other sort of combination of these categories. But the top three sectors here are religion, human services, and education. Now, when we look at how we use this information, you know, we can come back to the question about why fundraising feels hard. Now, fundraising often may feel hard because your team might be small. Maybe you're part of a one-person development team. I've been there before, right?
Yes.
It's tough. And many of you could be wearing multiple hats. And fundraising is often the one that no one asks to do. But maybe you're no one else has the expertise, nobody else has the interest, but somebody has to do it. Um, the other thing is oftentimes smaller nonprofit organizations may have no one dedicated to development, or they only have one person who's stretched way too thin. And you don't necessarily need a fundraising department to have strong fundraising program. Like, sure, when I was at Red Cross, it was fantastic. We had a prospect development team, we had a corporate team, we had an individual team, we had an events person. That was really nice. I'm not gonna lie. However, you can be a small nonprofit. I was the chief development officer of a place called the Maven Project. And when I was hired, I was able to bring on two people part-time. So one was like a data admin, the other was a grant writer, and then I kind of filled the gap everywhere else. And you don't need a fundraising department to have a strong fundraising program. What you need are the knowledge, the ability to learn new skill sets, the ability to adapt new tools and resources and implement them, to come up with policies, processes, procedures, right? What happens when somebody sends in a gift from a donor advised fund? What happens when somebody makes a gift online? What happens when somebody mails a check? What's the different methodology of getting that information into your CRM? After it gets to your CRM, what's automated? What's a follow-up? Who does what based on what amount the gift was? There are a lot of things to consider. If you haven't thought through these things, it might be worth doing so with a colleague, somebody from your local community. Maybe you are part of the Association of Fundraising Professionals and you have a chapter. Talk to the members about what they do and what you can implement, right? So once you're able to brainstorm some of these things, it will become feeling less hard and it will begin to feel a little bit more nuanced and a little bit more practical. And hopefully, it becomes like muscle memory after that. And you're absolutely right, Maget. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that correctly. Sometimes fundraising program is attached to the PR department. Marketing, communications, fundraising, they should be a closely held relationship. They shouldn't be operating in silos. And I know institutions that when they do their strategic plan, they're doing a marketing plan and a fundraising plan or a development plan step in step together because those deadlines, those goals all need to happen in communication with one another. Now, again, fundraising success isn't about even the size of the gift or the size of the goal or the size of the team, but really it's about alignment. Who's going to step up and be the person who manages the task for this goal and that objective, right? When you're creating a development plan, you're looking at a SWOT analysis, you're looking at the goals, the objectives, the tasks, and there has to be somebody who's leading that process. And you have to have somebody in mind who, on a week to week basis, a month to month basis, a quarter to quarter basis, and definitely on the annual basis, who is moving along those goals to see what is being accomplished. And when you have those steps in place, I believe that's when fundraising doesn't feel so hard because you have a roadmap.
You're right. And having that roadmap is critical for any organization's success. And you mentioned a lot of different things, Muhi, talking about relationships early on and having access to additional support. And this is where these boards can be able to help with alleviating some of the anxiety that some of you may have when we adequately provide them with the essential information to help build their confidence. It also, in turn, impacts you as a fundraiser, building your confidence in what you and your organization can do.
Absolutely. There we go. So, tell me what a culture of philanthropy is in the comments. Feel free to jump in and tell us about your institution's culture of philanthropy. I'd love to hear from a handful of you. So think through the importance of fundraising, the value that the board and the staff place on fundraising, and volunteers as well. Marika has a question. What happens when the development staff holds the roadmap and the board doesn't know what to do or how to participate, leaning back instead of leaning in? So, when I hear you say this, I think there is a gap somewhere, right? I think a development plan, if the board is responsible for coming up with a strategy of where the institution needs to go, oftentimes the staff is the one to implement it, right? It does take a 360 approach where all involved parties are in the conversations, whether it's through a survey or an in-person meeting or somehow dedicated to building that roadmap together. And same thing for the development plan. Maybe there's a development committee on the board, and that board committee takes the responsibility of saying, okay, the strategic plan has all of these tasks and objectives, and to accomplish these tasks, objectives, and goals, it will take $6 million to do so. We know that our programs and services generate 2.5 million. So philanthropy is going to have to come up with $4.5 million to make the difference. Now, when you come up with the development plan, you say, okay, our target is 4.5 million, but within the development plan, there are a set of tasks, goals, and objectives that will add up to that 4.5 million. Now, this is where the board has set what that goal is. The staff is now committing to saying how they will raise that 4.5 million, and it has to be a continuous loop between the board and the staff. Maybe the staff member has maybe the board has a staff liaison, right? Maybe it's the chief development officer, maybe it's a director of development, maybe it's the executive director. However, there needs to be constant communication. The development committee on the board has to be meeting outside of the board meetings and getting these updates so that they can provide the board with the update in their meetings. So, as a consultant, as somebody who's been part of different institutions, working with boards, that's where I would say there needs to be more of a connect when the board doesn't know what to do or how to participate. The staff liaison should be directing them on how to engage as well so that they can lean in.
And speaking of lean in the chat, we've got some really great comments, Muhi, about the culture of philanthropy. We have one that says culture of philanthropy means everyone supports fundraising as a part of the mission, building relationships, connecting partners to impact, and make fundraising a part of everyday work, not just requests. That is living, breathing fundraising at its finest. We also have another comment that talks about how everyone on the team, no matter what their role is responsible or has a shared responsibility for sharing the story. Storytelling is very important. Each person on your fundraising team, whether you're a really small, lean team or even a larger scale team, plays a vital role in your organization's ability to be successful. And it is important that everyone understands the value and has some of those anecdotal stories to tell as it relates to the impact of your organization on a larger scale. Any additional thoughts?
I totally agree. I think that these are great examples for everybody else in terms of how they can build their culture of philanthropy. And if you think about these examples that lead to a weak culture of philanthropy, you need everybody to look into what would make a stronger culture of philanthropy. Now, I think I went one slide ahead, so I'm going to try to go back and show you what the good culture of philanthropy is. LaShonda, I may need your assistance on going back to the previous slide so that we don't jump over a slide on
Okay, there we go.
excellent. Thank you for saving the day. So
That's what teamwork is.
now, whether we're talking about an organizational's culture in general, or specifically the culture of philanthropy, it shows up in the everyday language and decisions. And this is not extra work, it's how the work gets framed that makes a difference. So, for a culture of philanthropy, it's an environment where giving and generosity and supporting the mission are shared values that are embedded in everybody's role, whether it's a volunteer, whether it's somebody from the programs department or somebody from the executive team. Everybody is involved, and they also recognize the importance of fundraising. So each person is clear how they can contribute to cultivating donors, to stewarding donors, to soliciting donors. And donors are considered long-term allies and not just one-time donors or, oh, we only engage them in gala season and no, not through the rest of the
End of
year,
year, end
right?
of year gifts. Yeah.
Yeah. So a healthy cultural philanthropy moves an organization from transactional to relational. And instead of focusing on money and events and short-term fixes, when you focus on the relational fundraising, it then becomes based on values and impact and long-term partnership, right? So it's about shifting the framework. And if you are fortunate to have fundraising staff who take care of the annual fund, others who take care of major gifts, they're touching their portfolio throughout the entire year, right? So there needs to be different methods of engagement, different drops of information, or, oh, we just had an article in the news, or we were on a news segment on NPR. Share that with the donor at that point, right? It's not always about making an ask. It's about engaging them, informing them, talking to them about what inspires them, um, sharing your appreciation of them. That's what cultivation is, right? And acknowledging the donor how they want to be acknowledged. That's what stewardship is, right? So there are a lot of ways in which you can engage your donors again as partners, not as somebody, not like an ATM machine, right?
We have a question in the chat that kind of aligns with this, Muhi. It's asking,
Hmm.
one of the challenges is helping our board members understand the critical role that they play in building the culture of philanthropy within the organization. Their question is, how can they overcome the barrier?
Yeah, I think again, job descriptions, board orientations when they sign on for their term. Um, those are just two that come to mind that might help. And even if your institution's been around for 20 years and there have been board members on for 3 years already. Um, and to be honest, some of us in a 20-year organization might have board members that have been there for 20 years, right? So
Right.
think about term limits, think about job descriptions, think about orientations, think about buddy system where a longer term member mentors a younger term member, right? So there's that institutional knowledge of transfer. And that's how
Mm-hmm.
you're going to build a culture of philanthropy within the institution.
And the biggest part, Mohi, that I really want to reemphasize to everyone is that orientation. When you're identifying prospective board members, you want to make sure that they are already interested in philanthropically supporting your organization if they've not already done so. Many applications for grants will ask organizations what percentage of your board has given. And ideally, in those situations, you want to be able to say 100% of your board members have given, and we lead by example. And so making sure that your board members are philanthropic from the beginning of the relationship is really going to be important. And
One
for
thing I
those that may
like,
be, yeah, oh, sorry, go ahead.
please.
And for those that may be existing board members and you're trying to transition into that culture of philanthropy, education is going to be key, and sharing with them the importance of the value that they add. And as leaders of the organization, when you're asking individuals to support your organization, many instances, some folks, when you're having those one on one conversations with prospective donors, they will ask you also, do you support your organization? So you really want to emphasize the importance of belief and value, along with mission alignment, and the importance of transitioning that affinity into philanthropic support, which is what your overarching goal is when you engage with prospective donors as well.
Absolutely. And to Marika's point in the chat, you know, her institution's working on a series of short board education segments during board
Mm-hmm.
meetings and retreats to build that understanding and culture. And I think that's so critical. Um, a lot of institutions that I've been part of and that I've introduced at orgs that didn't have it are mission moments where you start the board meeting with each member going around the table sharing a mission moment. Could be from since the last meeting, it could be from their history there, but it allows you to grasp the impact. It allows you to hear their why. It allows you to build off of a connection and make the mission more palpable. And when you're out and about in the community, you then get to use that mission moment and put it in your own words as well. And that is where a lot of this culture of philanthropy comes from as well. So now, if we jump ahead, a culture of philanthropy lives in everyday action, from how decisions are made, donors are respected, and impact is communicated. Now, what this means to me is it's all about communication. It's all about engagement. It's all about how you share your mission with others. And this means that you have to practice your elevator pitch. This means that you have to know more about the institution, little tidbits of knowledge. It also means that you need to know your programs and services. So, as a major gift officer or as a annual fund officer or whatever your role is, maybe someone on here is a board member of another institution. Maybe somebody here is a volunteer for a nonprofit that they really love. So, when you think about the impact that your institution makes, you also have to think about how you tell that story. Some people may want it in facts and figures. Some people may want it in an infographic. Others may want it in a short oratory video. Others might want to hear directly from the beneficiary, right? So you have to create 7 different ways of saying the same thing sometimes for it to translate to your donors. And that often takes a communications team. That often takes an individual just to own the task. Hopefully, you're able to get these tidbits and elevator talking points into a more nuanced conversation face to face, or at least over Zoom, or maybe over a phone call, or even through email, whatever method that works best for the donor, to share what that impact is. And if you can do that with your board members and their network and their sphere of influence, that's how you can engage your board more in fundraising. I remember before every board meeting, I would ask board members to share 5 names of somebody they think that would be interested in learning more about the institution. So a week before the meeting, the board packet goes out to the board. I would follow up with the development committee and say, hey, would love to learn about 5 people in your network who I can reach out to next week. Then the conversation goes from, hey, we just had a board meeting, thought about you, would love to share more about our institution. The board member makes an introduction, whether that's over text, email, in person. The board member offers to meet up the friend for coffee. I'm also invited. So these things take time to implement. They take a lot of effort. They take a lot of follow-up. And you might have 10 board members, but on the development committee, there might only be 3 or 5. So you have to make sure that at least the development committee are doing these things so that it builds your prospect pool as well for your annual fund and hopefully eventually major gifts.
Good insight, Muhi. I love the moment to share the mission moment. That is a really great way to engage the board in real time, as well as give talking points to them as they go out into their respective roles within the community to share some of the amazing things that are happening.
Absolutely. And, not that board members need hand-holding, um, but oftentimes they're so stretched thin between their external commitments, their family commitments, their work commitments. They joined the board for some reason or another. Find out what that reason is, right? Was it a personal favor to a friend? Was it they're really passionate about it? Was it that they were a direct beneficiary themselves, maybe somebody in their family, right? So once you can build that relationship with your board members and hopefully the development committee members even that much more, then you're able to have a much more nuanced conversation on how to engage them in their network as well. And get all of this information into your CRM, right? Almost every conversation with your board could be a donor visit in some way, shape, or capacity, right? Maybe you're not the ask owner or the relationship manager per se, but if you are asking these board members to make these introductions to their network, I would say that that counts towards your metrics in terms of helping the institution move forward as well. So we are going to jump into another poll, and there are three options here. Now, which best describes your organization today? If fundraising belongs to one person, fundraising happens when we need money, and fundraising is part of how we share impact.
Gosh, we're seeing a variety of mixed responses here. It's going to be interesting to see what the outcome is based on our very diverse audience today. When you talk about it belonging to one person, it makes me think about when you mentioned earlier small shops and how you have to wear many hats. And in those instances, although individuals become stretched very thin, once you've adequately acclimated the board to creating that culture of philanthropy, it really is very helpful with extending the resources. Wow.
Yeah. So
And the
we've had about
results are in.
70% of people participate. We'll leave it open just for another minute. Get your responses in if you haven't already, and we'll see how the
Okay.
cookie crumbles.
The cookie is crumbling and it's leaning into that small shop concept where it's looking like the majority thus far are saying that the fundraising belongs to one person.
Yeah.
And that's good because it doesn't need to happen only when we need money, because we need money for sustainability throughout the life cycle of the life of the organization or lifespan.
Yeah. So in first place, very close, almost a tie. Fundraising belongs to one person. And next up, we have fundraising as part of how we share impact. And the last place, fundraising happens when we need money. Now, I'm actually happy with this distribution. Um, the one person part, it's challenging. It, but it's also a time to showcase how well you as that one person or that individual can work in a very tough situation. Hopefully it's not too stressful. Hopefully you've been able to build again systems, processes, procedures to make your work a little bit easier. Um, but for fundraising as part of how we share impact, I think that's great. I think it gives you a reason to talk to your donors, and in this case, your board members. And if you're able to share your impact with your board members, they will hopefully become ambassadors, advocates, and askers for your institution, right? So if we can take this as momentum where a third of you, over a third of you, 41% said that fundraising is part of how we share impact, right? You're ready to take it to the next level. You're ready to engage your board in my books. Those of you where fundraising belongs to one person, that's also an opportunity. You get to distribute it right back to the board and say, help us build our prospecting pool with your network of friends and family who may be interested in our mission. Can you spend some time to go through your Rolodex and see who you can introduce us to? Hopefully, the board members will say yes. And then it's a matter of prioritization from there. How are you going to follow up with the board member? What are you going to ask the board member to share? Is it simply just the names and you want a phone number or an email? Or do you want more depth to it, right? I would often try to make mini portfolios for our board members, and I would do it by zip code and by people that they personally knew. So it was a mixture, right? And if the board member had capacity to make, you know, 10 phone calls a month, I'd look at who were the biggest donors in their zip code for that month. And I would say, or the month prior even. And I would say, can you make these 10 calls? Here's a script. I need you to thank these donors who gave last month. And if you're able to do that, right, then you are having a board member share more about their why if they catch them on the phone or even if they're leaving a voicemail, but simply just sharing gratitude. I think everybody can do that. They may not feel comfortable making the ask, but everybody, especially a board member, should feel comfortable saying thank you to a donor, don't you think?
I think it's really easy. It's a lot easier than making an ask, and it's a great way to acclimate them to engaging with donors and helping you with the relationship and strengthening the relationship that you have with donors, and also stewarding, because that's really going to be important to help as a retention piece. And also, we talked about not being transactional and becoming more meaningful. And imagine what it would feel like for you as an individual to get a call from a board member after making a gift.
Yeah. So I mentioned ambassador, advocate, and asker. And what do I mean by that? I want you to think about which one resonates with you at this time. Do you think you have board members that open doors and share stories, or some board members that are champions of the mission and they validate the impact and they're the ones shouting from the rooftops about your organization? Or do you have some that like to participate in the solicitation process? So think about which one of these three roles are missing from your institution and try to recruit a board member that might fit into one of these categories where you don't have a lot of focus. Um, and think about what you may aspire to work towards with some more coaching or confidence, or bring in a trainer to talk to your board members at your next board retreat or your next board meeting to talk about these three different fundraising roles. Now, if we look into different philosophies around philanthropy, you should be able to learn a little bit more about what Fundraising Academy calls the Madden test. And this is one of my favorite resources within our curriculum. And whether it's with nonprofit clients doing consulting, or it's with the different training cohorts that have come through Fundraising Academy, it's really great when they begin to grasp this concept. And I want to ask you to keep this in mind, and we're going to dive a little bit deeper into each of these three roles as well. Now, with the Madden test, you should be able to invite your attendees um, and segment who from your donors should be invited to different types of events. Now, you can look at our friends, our colleagues, other connections through the use of this Madden test. And this is definitely more focused on relationships. And not all people will fit into one of these categories, but if they do, they may be a better prospect than you think, right? So when it comes to the Madden test, do they have the financial means to make a contribution or gift at an event or throughout the year? So do they have the means? Then are they approachable? Do you know them, or can somebody make an introduction? Have they expressed interest? Maybe you were at a farmer's market tabling and they left their email. That's approachable. Now, do you think that they have the desire to learn more about your mission, the organization, or a desire to even attend an event? And here's a critical one. Are they the decision maker? Should their spouse or partner also be invited and involved? And will they be emotionally connected to the mission and how our program impacts the community? And lastly, what need of theirs are we able to fulfill with this partnership? So again, Madden is the means, approachable, desire, decision maker, emotionally connected, and need. What are some of your thoughts on this framework?
I've used this before in the workplace several times, and it has been very helpful. And we talked earlier about the opportunity to educate the board members, and having a session where you're identifying prospects. You mentioned earlier not only the mission moment, but tell me your top 5 people that you think would be prospective donors to the organization. Using this as a tool will help with identifying and prioritizing individuals that your organization may want to reach out to. And with this, it helps equip you to not only be more effective, but it also helps you be efficient with time, because as fundraisers, we spend quite a bit of time with research. And so by pulling together your team who has a network and can provide a little bit of insight will help with streamlining some of your processes. We have a comment in the box in the chat. Let's take a look. Let's see what we have here.
CFRE, yeah, go ahead.
CFRE talks about LI linkage, ability, and interest, things to remember, but also less detail. Absolutely. And
Yeah,
that's the key. And Matten does that, and it goes into a little bit more detail, because a part of that too, where your board members come into play, is approachable, for individuals that you want to expand as prospective donors to your organization. Do you have someone that can facilitate that direct introduction is going to be important.
excellent. And something, Gina, to also mention about linkage, ability, and interest. I'm sure many of you have heard of the donor pyramid. So at the bottom of the donor pyramid is the annual fund. In the middle is, a repeat gift, a increased gift, a major gift, then a capital
Mm-hmm.
campaign gift, and then all the way at the top is planned giving, right? Now, from the bottom half of that donor pyramid, that's where linkage, ability, and interest are involved. But as you get to the higher segments of that donor pyramid, major gifts and planned giving, or capital campaign gift even, it turns into LIA. Now, it's still linkage, but then it's involvement and advocacy, right?
Yes.
So it switches from linkage, ability, and interest to linkage, involvement, and advocacy. So if you're able to involve your board members, which hopefully they're involved because they're attending the meetings, they're attending the events, and then they can become advocates as well. They're screaming from that rooftop. They become an asker. They become ambassador to open doors and share stories and champion the mission and validate the impact. And maybe they give you a few names, but they don't want to ask their personal friends. So you find the executive director or another person on staff, like in the programs, to share their why. And then you, as the fundraising staff member, can make the closing ask, right? And you can also train other people on your staff. Volunteers make great partners to take on a donor visit. They get to share their story, they get to share their why. Some of them even like making the ask too, right? But if you're going to have somebody make the ask, they should also be somebody who have their skin in the game financially as well by making a gift as well. And oftentimes you want to find people who are peers with the donor as well. Maybe it's by socioeconomic status, maybe it's by education status, maybe it's by a whole multitude of things, demographics, whatever you want to call it. But there should be some element of being relatable if you're going to have somebody else do the ask as well. So that's a little bit more on the Madden test. Now, when we look at all of this, we want to look into what are the best practices that exist, and more importantly, that actually matter when it comes down to it. So remember, fundraising is not only asking about money, it's about inviting people to make an impact. I think that's one of the things, when somebody in the comments mentioned about people think we are simply begging, right? I think that it's an invite. It's not begging, it's an invitation to people to make an impact. And if you shift that mindset, you shift that frame of thinking, every ask becomes that much more important. It becomes that much more impactful. And fundraising works best when donors feel seen, informed, appreciated, and not when they're forgotten, not when it's gala season, and not when the institution needs more money. That's when it's too late, right? So that means that we, as relationship managers, need to be sharing impact more frequently. We need to be thanking our donors more quickly, more regularly, and we need to make decisions and choices that reflect our mission and give us the ability to treat our donors like partners instead. One of my mentors, and maybe you'll recognize his name, and he's a trainer at Fundraising Academy, Jack Alato. He often says that we should treat every donor like a major gift donor, right? And if it's what great fun like, if that is what great fundraising looks like, it also means being honest about what we need to stop doing. And we need to stop treating fundraising like a series of one-off emergencies and putting out fires. And whether that's failing to follow up after event or relying too heavily on a few donors or scrambling for money at the last minute, instead of just reporting what you did, and focus showing the impact you made and building a more stable, intentional revenue strategy. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that resonates with you. Now, we need to walk away with some practical steps here. I'm sure many of you, hopefully there's one or two things that we've shared that may stand out to you. But if there's three things that you take away from today, I hope that they are this. I want you to think about and talk about fundraising differently starting from tomorrow. How you engage your board needs to change, especially if none of the people on this call were at a 5 when we took the survey, right? So something needs to change. You can't be doing everything the same way and expect some miracle to happen and things just get better. So you don't need more staff. You don't need fancy tools. You don't need a bigger budget. That might help, right? But you don't necessarily even need a 5-year plan. What you need is to start shifting your language about fundraising and increase how often you share that impact. If your board meetings are monthly, you better be sharing that impact monthly or more regularly, even with your board members. If it's quarterly, do it, every 2 months. If it is one annual retreat, make sure those impact stories are there. And you want to treat your donors as partners and approach them as collaborators in your mission. Fernanda, the alternative to ability, so linkage, ability, and interest goes to linkage, involvement, and advocacy. And maybe that's something that you can implement from tomorrow as well, a strategy on getting your donors from ability and interest to involvement and advocacy. Now, if we look at how to kind of come to a close and open it up more to questions from the group, what I hope you remember is that fundraising isn't about perfection. It's more about alignment, clarity, and trust. When leaders build a culture of philanthropy, fundraising becomes more sustainable and far less stressful. And the reason I'm saying that is because many of you, possibly like myself earlier in my career, were overwhelmed. We were stressed out. And some of it could be from the expectations of management internally. Some of it could be external factors. There's a whole multitude of reasons. But again, if you are able to implement change, if you are able to influence the relationship with your board members, if you are able to engage them in more meaningful ways, sharing your own why and mission, moments, and impact with the board, they will also see you as trusted partners in this organization, moving the vision and mission forward. So hopefully, these are some examples of what you can do and how you can do it and when you can do it to influence those relationships with your board members so that, again, they can leverage their spheres of influence to become prospective donors for your institution. I will pass it back to LaShonda. It's been wonderful sharing this with you. And I sincerely hope that you come up with some questions. You can put them in the Q&A or you can drop them into the chat. And I'd love to offer some more feedback. And I'm sure LaShonda has some gems up her sleeve as well that we would love to offer you in terms of how to engage your boards to be more successful and activating them for fundraising success.
Yes. If you could please, if you have any questions that we've not addressed at this point, please make sure that you drop them in the Q&A and or the chat, because we want to make sure that you leave equipped, as Muhi said, with all the essential tools and resources that you need in order to be successful as you increase your fundraising success with your board. We have a question in the chat. Thank you. My takeaways are that fundraising is a long-term relationship and partnership. Everyone should be involved in the process, and we should have a roadmap and strategy. You're absolutely right. And that is your development plan. And that's why it's so important. Muhi mentioned earlier about having those opportunities to meet and have a retreat and or planning session with your board, and identifying roles and responsibilities and how they all complement each other and help amplify the organization's goal when we all know our roles and work effectively and are able to share the mission and share stories. There is a lot of information that you all received today, but the baseline of fundraising as professional fundraisers, you already know, is relationships. And it all begins with ensuring that you have developed an effective relationship with not only your board members, but your team. And Muhi mentioned the importance of pulling in volunteers, and volunteers can also play a critical role. Fernanda has a comment that what if board members seem to understand their role, but disconnect is on the follow through? What should our focus be on encouraging them to continue being engaged without sounding like scolding parent? That is the lucky balance. That's an excellent question, Fernanda. I'll yield to Muhi.
Okay. So the follow through, and again, like that's why I mentioned hand holding earlier in the presentation, right? I think that talk to your executive director, talk to your development committee, come up with a system that allows you to remind and engage board members effectively. Ask them, what's the best way to make sure I help you accomplish this task? If they say I need a phone call, I'll do it by Wednesday. Then it's Friday, it hasn't happened. These are adults, these are professionals. I think that they would appreciate the reminder. And if it comes with a script, if it comes with making it the most absolute easy way possible to send the email, make the phone call, sign the letter, drop off things, go pick it up. Maybe it's a postcard and you already pre-stamp it and fill it out and they just need to sign it or they just need to
Yeah.
write the script, right? So what is the task? How are you going to make it easier for them? And nobody likes a scolding parent, right? So it's about the tone and framework, and nobody likes somebody nagging them, right? So I think it's about how, it's about reminding them of the mission at hand and what is being accomplished by them completing this task. And if you can put it in that framework, the follow through should happen. And maybe it's too big of an ask at this life moment for that board member, but maybe there's another season in their life that they have more time.
And time is definitely key. Many of you, your board members, may have many roles and responsibilities. And as Muhi said, it's really important that we identify and understand what kind of time capacity they actually have, and be there to help support them with that follow through and bridge the gap. Muhi, we have another question from Michelle that talks about what if they're just way too focused on the logistics of an event and not the fundraising piece? How do we handle that?
You have to remind them, what is the event for? Is it a fundraising event? Is it a cultivation event? Is it a stewardship event? If the annual gala has a goal of $3 million and they're getting people in the room, or are they focused on what type of flowers are on the table? Right? Um, I think for logistics, that's what a host committee is for. So if a board member wants to be on the host committee, I'm not going to stop them. But who are they inviting in the room that are going to help you get to that $3 million?
100%. Marika says, I think clarity is important. Giving people deadlines and letting them know that you'll follow up, inviting them to respond to question challenges, and yes, making it easier. Also keep reminders mission focused. We're almost there. I'm so grateful. You're absolutely right. Muhi talked about tone and the way you say things, and messaging is everything. This business is a relationship business. And as we continue to treat others as we want people to treat us, and we do that and we practice that on an ongoing basis, then it'll help increase our outcomes. Because as mentioned earlier, no one wants a nagging parents. We want a partner in pursuing elevation of our mission.
Absolutely.
Do we have any other questions at this point? Because I do have some additional information I'd love to share with everyone.
Yeah, Jennifer shares, how do you get board members to have a sense of urgency and actually understand what timelines we have set are important? We set deadlines for them to get auction items only for it to be ignored, causing items to come in last minute. Don't get me wrong, we're grateful for the help. Um, yeah, I mean, one way to look at it is, hey, they helped. But if you're able to provide feedback in a not so critical tone, but a generous tone that shows them what could have been done had timelines been met, I think they'll understand the point, right? And say about next year, we'd love to see you participate, help out. Do you think that you'd be willing to help out next year if we can get these items secured 2 months in advance, 1 month in advance, instead of the week of XYZ?
Yeah. And then, I hate to say this, Muhi, and I hesitate to say this, but sometimes when you know individuals and how they work with timelines, sometimes you have to give them a cushion deadline. So if your cutoff is absolutely on the 15th, you may need to tell them the cutoff is on the 1st so that they'll get it to you by the 15th.
Right.
So so there's many variables, and then it becomes very challenging. But again, like Muhi said, we want to have the attitude of gratitude in all that we do, and share the possibilities over and over again. The reason why, just like for those of you that may or may not be parents, kids always ask why. Sharing why. The reason why we want to get all of the items 2 months in advance is because we want to make sure we have an opportunity to increase our base of potential individuals who may want to bid on these auction items. We want to make sure we are able to provide adequate display so that it looks really well. And we want to make sure that we have a proper inventory. You also want to make sure that you are responding to those individuals who've made those generous gifts and donations in a timely manner. So there are many factors involved with that aspect of it for consideration to share with the board members.
Yeah.
And with that being said, again, relationships are the heart of fundraising. And today we've shared quite a bit of information. Muhi's gone through great details with us today, sharing the importance of how we can engage our boards in ways to help making them successful with fundraising. And there are some additional skills that are available through the Fundraising Academy. We're very excited to share with you for those of you who are interested in continuing your educational journey as a professional fundraiser and interested in the CFRE, which was mentioned earlier. Very excited to share with you next month, July 15th. Muhi, along with his mentor, Jack, and my mentor, Jack, will be hosting a
No, he's
session
my
on
mentor. LaShonda, he's my mentor.
he may have been your mentor first, but he is my mentor the most. How about that?
Finders keepers.
So, needless to say, as you can tell, Jack is fondly appreciated by the Fundraising Academy, not only for his professional contributions, but his knowledge, his impact, and his ability to really encourage individuals in their fundraising fields and give some excellent tips. And he and Muhi will be together, and they'll share with you foundations of earning your CFRE tips and strategies for a proven study plan. He was my tutor during the process, and this is an excellent session if you're interested. We're very excited that Bloomerang is our exclusive series sponsor, and if you're interested in the CFRE, please make sure that you save this date and you register for this session. It will be very informative, and it's also, you'll earn CFRE credits for participating in the session. I'm
And I
excited.
must say, if this was your first Fundraising Academy webinar with us, I'm sure you found it engaging. I'm sure you found it somewhat amusing. LaShonda and I are good friends outside of this as well. Um, but if I say so myself, Jack and I are just a whole other level of fun. LaShonda's fun, don't get me wrong. LaShonda is a fantastic time. But Jack and I, we go way back.
Dynamic duo status today. However, at AFP Icon, Jack and I are the dynamic duo. How about that? So, as you can tell, we are fighting over Jack because everyone loves Jack. Make sure that you share that information. And also, we again want to acknowledge our generous benefactor and support of Bloomerang. They are our partner, and they definitely play a vital role in being able to provide this to you at no cost. And we're very grateful to them. They have a phenomenal platform. If you've not had a chance to check it out, please use the QR code to learn more about their platform that can support your fundraising endeavors from both a data perspective in terms of putting in information for your CRM and also extracting data to help you make data informed decisions. We're very excited that the two of us will get to be the dynamic duo together. Muhi and I both will be in San Diego, and we'll be presenting at the San Diego Fundraising Conference in September. We're very excited. We're going to talk to you more about building trust with donors, strengthening relationships for long-term financial support for your organization. So if you're in the San Diego area, please consider joining us at the San Diego Fundraising Conference. We're very excited and looking forward to meeting those out on that coast. It's going to be a great time. And we want to stay connected with you. If you have any questions that either of us have not been able to answer today, or if you just want to get some feedback from us on a project that you're working on, please look us up on LinkedIn. We are happy to respond, and we want to connect with you to keep you informed with all of the resources that are available with Fundraising Academy. Please know that you can follow Fundraising Academy as well on LinkedIn. Each week, we have a variety of different posts that range from myths and facts related to fundraising, as well as our mini sessions that we offer for webinars for each and every one of you to help increase your knowledge in fundraising. And we are very excited. We have a wonderful online no-cost portal that's available. So if you have enjoyed today's webinar, you'll have an opportunity to access our 40 plus webinars that we've hosted over the years. So if there's something specific that you'd like to know more about, whether it is major gifts, annual giving, starting a capital campaign, or even initiating planned giving, we have a variety of different topics that we cover and how the cost selling cycle can help you in each phase of your fundraising. So again, that portal is no cost. Please scan the QR code and log in to register to get access to all the information. We have blogs, worksheets that'll help you with planning. We talked a lot today, Muhi, about planning and working with your board. And so we have some additional material that's available for you if you'd like to check that out. And for those of you who are really ready to take a sincere, deeper dive at your own pace, we do offer Fundraising's Essential Certificate, which is available for you. The training is comprehensive, and the certificate program provides support for individuals at all levels. If you're interested in increasing your professional goals as a fundraiser and understanding your knowledge base, this online certificate program is self-paced, and we love that it's self-paced because we know as fundraisers every day is different and you may have more availability during specific times of the year. So this is designed for you to to gain the experience and knowledge at your own pace. And we also have a variety of different pricing options available for organizations as well as individuals. And the bang for the buck, which I love to share with everyone. Muhi and I both have our CFRE, as you know. And for those of you that are interested in pursuing the CFRE, all of the modules associated with our certificate programs are applicable to your CFRE application. So we hope that you'll check out the many resources that we have available, because we want to ensure that you are successful in your role and that your organization is not only able to garner philanthropic support, but you're able to maintain strong relationships for many years to come so that you can continue to provide the services that you offered here today and forevermore. Thank you all so much for being with us today. We are honored that you chose Fundraising Academy to be a part of, and we look forward to each and every one of you joining us again next month, perhaps for the CFRE webinar. If not, please be sure to connect with us. We do have a couple of more comments in the comment section that I'll go over before we close out, because we have just a few moments. And Muhi, if you'll, oh, Muhi's posted, so great. Muhi has posted all the information that you need, and thank each and every one of you for joining us today. And we wish you well in your fundraising endeavors. And please do not be afraid to challenge your board to be a little uncomfortable, but knowledge is key. So equip them with the information that they know they need to know to be successful, and be there to hold their hands, to partner with them to ensure their success. I will yield the final moments to our gracious presenter, the Muhi.
Thank you so much. Just like Madonna, Eminem, Cher, I'm known as Muhi. So I really appreciated getting to chat with everybody. Hopefully, again, there was a tidbit that was able to resonate with you that you'll be able to take back to your organizations. Do reach out on LinkedIn, say you were part of the webinar. Let's stay connected and make a difference together.
Thank you all again so much. We hope to see you again in our next webinar next month. And until then, wishing you well. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.